All right. We're excited to have Kristine Dizon with us today on the Lifelong Educators Show. She is the founder of Music and Language Learning Center. Dizon started out as a professional musician and an in-person educator before switching to the virtual world just last year. In today's episode, we'll dive into the hows and the whys behind Dizon's work, how she successfully started a virtual music school and language school in such a short time frame. Why did her company grow so quickly? We always want to know that. What kind of advice can she offer to others who are looking to do the same? We're excited to hear Kristine's fascinating story and grow as course creators ourselves. So listen closely to hear her experiences, ideas, and advice. I am sure it'll carry you closer to the goals you've set for your own online course. So welcome, Kristine, to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, awesome. Dotan, flying side by side again. How are you?
Perfect. We're almost at 20 shows. We are excited to be here. Yeah.
It is. It's flying by. It's great, but every show is a little bit different. And I think, Kristine's story is super interesting for many, many reasons. We'll get into those. But the first one is that a lot of the folks that we've talked to have pivoted. They went from one thing to another. It seems like, Kristine, as you landed in the virtual space, you didn't just pivot, you pivoted and you pushed, and you've got a lot of success. And I think because we're in a community of helping others, people are really going to want to hear about that. So get us up to speed on what you've done. You've been all over the world playing the clarinet, but then please get us quickly to your business.
For sure. So, well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to share my story with everyone. Essentially, what happened was during the time of the pandemic had started in around March 2020, I believe, everything just started shutting down. Different concerts were being closed. People were not able to be in the space. And so, one of the things that I had done was I made a list of things that I was good at, things that I could do, things that I've already have, and I wanted to be able to combine those passions together. And so essentially that's how the Music and Language Center started to be coming together. And I had done it as a single teacher, so I was the only one teaching all of my classes. I had written all of my class materials and things like that. And then eventually what happened was then I started needing help. I had been teaching 16 hours per day during the pandemic for
Mm.
about 4 or 5 months. And I realized that actually I needed to have a balance. And while I can be a very particular person about how I want to do things and how I see how things should be done, I realized that this is a point of my life there I needed to have help and being able to make it so that the classes were not just available during the times that I was awake or the times that students had available throughout this short period of time, but being able to expand the time offerings that we have. So I had two teachers initially for the Spanish classes because that had been in demand. And what I had done was eventually expanded to hire another French teacher who also teaches music, being able to hire another Portuguese teacher and different topics that we teach. And so for me, it's one of those things that I want to emphasize the quality of the work that I do. I have very high standards. You can ask my staff of what I expect, And the thing is, with those expectations and being able to trust my teachers to be able to do the job that they do, it has actually influenced that type of growth, or you could say inspired growth, because of the fact that I do trust them. And the thing is, I also have to make sure that I give them the tools that they need to be successful. And yes, so that's that in a nutshell, I guess.
Sounds easy, right?
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I know how hard it is as someone who has built this kind of educational business with, I think at the peak of my educational company, we had 200 instructors, right? So how do you keep the high standards when you have 200 instructors? How do you give them the tools? And it's almost the same with 10 teachers and 200 teachers. It's just a little bit of different hierarchy and organizational structure, but you have to develop a lot of tools. So you didn't just pivot from playing a clarinet to teaching and then hiring staff. You also developed your skills from teaching to managing to monitoring to customer support, I guess. Like you actually had to develop a lot of that as well. It's not just teaching anymore.
Yes, and also too, it's a trial by error, I guess you could say. So, for example, there's always that type of customer service element that's involved. And so, one of the things that I've learned is that, okay, so if I have a class that needs 3 students to run, minimum 3 students, and I'm not able to meet that in 2 weeks, then depending on my availability, then I would pick up that section. So, it's one of those things that to be able to engage those families, to be able to not frustrate them, because if it's a class that they genuinely want to take, they're really excited, like, I want to take this class, right? But then when it gets delayed, then I've learned that, okay, I'm going to give it 2 weeks to fill. Then if it doesn't fill, if I'm available to do it, then I will teach it. If I'm not available to do it, then I'm going to provide them the refund that they deserve because I'm not able to provide a service for them, depending on the availability
Yeah.
of the other teachers.
Yeah, this is music to Dotan and Mai's ears in terms of my experience running education and education business in the enrichment space and for Dotan camp. Is it going to run? Is it not? How long? Get the refunds back, make sure they're happy. But I think I'm smelling something here. You mentioned a list: balance, trust, tools, trial by error. You really sound like an entrepreneur. And then when I look at your bio, you're doing CDs and you just published a book and you're traveling pretty soon all over the country, the US, to record. So talk about how you balance all that stuff because I think you're an entrepreneur.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
thank you. The thing is, it's a matter of being able to prioritize. I feel like the things that need my attention, but also to being able to delegate certain tasks. So I do have a
Mhm.
small staff. They're small, but they're mighty. I always say that in the fact that they're very efficient, very nice people, genuinely kind people who really want to see the MLLC grow. And so a lot of the time, for example, when we focus on development and we focus on growth, being able to achieve organic growth or through social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, it's just a matter of being able to delegate certain tasks. So a lot of the things that I know that I need to do, that I need to address, like really serious problems, are
Mhm.
things that I address directly. Now, there's certain things like with email correspondence. So, my assistant, I hope you're listening to this. She, so she answers, we receive like around maybe close to 100 on average emails per day. So, that 100 emails for me to write a thoughtful response to someone takes a lot of time, and it's one of those things that I tell her, okay, well, what we're going to do is create a template of different types of responses that we would need to provide. If we need to delay a class, this is a response that we have. If someone has an emergency, we have another response. And so we found a way to not automate it, but to make it work as a machine as a whole. So that way we're able to also have the families feel like there's that type of connection, that we are responding right away and being able to connect with them and to answer any questions that they might have about any of the course offerings that we have. Delegation.
You're talking about so many students and clients, and you started this during the pandemic. Have you ever met any of your clients in person, or is it all fully online?
I actually, a couple of months ago, I did to bring an instrument. So I brought an instrument from that I had helped purchase for one of my students, or actually 2 students, and I brought them with me to California. So, for example, I had a student who does, well, not had, I still have her. She's amazing. She wakes up at 6 a.m. to have lessons with me. 6 a.m. And so I said, okay, this kid needs to have an instrument. So I actually flew all the way to California to be able to bring it to her and actually show her what she needs to do with it, and with another student that I have there. And it's one of those things that it just melts your heart when you see them. Sometimes I make jokes. I said, "Well, I imagine that you would be taller because, in the Zoom screen, it's like this,
I've heard that one before.
you know, they actually, it's actually really nice, and being able to share time with them in that way that you connect with them on that level, that was really cool for me. That was
One of
really cool.
the one of the things you said, and you kind of shied away from it a little bit, was the automation part, and maybe you don't want to say automated, maybe you want to say just you're being more efficient, which is fine. So can you talk about your use of OutSchool? Our friends at OutSchool have built a big business, and
Mhm.
it's all a community of online learners, whether it's OutSchool or it's Click2 or whatever. We're all in this together. So can you talk about, for other people, how you leveraged the power of OutSchool?
Yeah, for sure. I actually got hired at Outschool in 2016, and it was like one of those things that the whole online learning thing, I wasn't sure, wasn't familiar with it. And so I actually was hired by Nick Grandy, who's one of the founders of the organization, right? So then throughout the time, I didn't have that business mindset of, oh, okay, I need to do this to build my business. I actually had used OutSchool in a way of being able to purchase things that I needed for my clarinet, right? So whether it was like reeds, ligatures, music, I used that income that I was generating from that side hustle, you could say, that turned into a bigger hustle. I don't know if that's the correct term about it. And said, okay, so this is what I'm going to use this for. Now, during that time also, I was doing my PhD studies in Portugal, where I had won a grant through the Portuguese Science and Technology. So that helped fund my studies for those 4 years. So it was one of those things that I was using it as like a side gig. But then when the pandemic hit was when I was like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to work? How am I going to be able to do this? And that's when I started focusing my attention and work in being able to develop
Let
this.
me ask about your work there and other places from a different angle. So I know from our previous conversation that you also work with other organizations, right? You run classes for more organizations that probably those business channels that you built organically through your network and through your presence in this space. So how do you do that? I mean, how do you build more audiences, except of what OutSchool provides as a marketing channel? How do you really build your business in terms of finding new audiences, recruiting them, doing all this customer acquisition work?
Yes, actually, that's been a focus of what I've been trying to do for the past 3 weeks, a month or so, in regards to expanding with the database that we already have. So we had started with being able to make a list of charter schools. So there is quite a bit of research involved. So, for example, listing all the charter schools in California, all the charter schools here, being able to understand and read data and patterns, and being able to reach to principals of those schools, to different directors of those institutions, and being able to say, I'm currently offering this, etc., and so forth. There are times, however, that we get responses, like really nice responses, like, yeah, it would be really great if you could provide a Spanish class for 15 kids. And I would say, okay, well, I just have to adapt it just because the classes that we do offer are currently for a small group. But then I just have to adapt the content so that way it can be accessible through 15 students, for example. In addition to that, there's a lot of things with Facebook, which is currently what we're developing at the MLLC database, that include areas like New York, Massachusetts, and being able to build the database from there of reaching out to different homeschool communities communities, co-ops, being able to create content on our Facebook page. We have a TikTok now, right? I'm really proud of that. We,
It's
there
the
was a lot
small
of research
wins. It's the
involved in
small
that.
wins.
There was a lot of research involved in that. Being able to understand the audience, how the audience views TikTok, the attention span of those. I mean, there's quite a lot involved, and so we're still developing it. We're still developing the database and being able to it's not just have it be a one-time thing, but having it be a gradual process over the next several years.
So when
So I,
so once we meet in 3 years from now, you're gonna be focused more on your new B2B business, basically giving that content, those courses to organizations, or are you still gonna be focusing on the smaller groups with the small audience or maybe big audience today that you have on Outschool or other places?
Well, the way I see things over the next several years, I actually firmly do believe that online learning is going to stay. And I feel like as a whole, we've adapted really well to it. And there's actually a lot of benefits that you could get from it, not just because of the pandemic, but being able to watch recordings over again. I never had that as a kid. I would have loved to have that part, being able to watch class recordings multiple times to make sure I didn't miss any information during those class time meetings. Being able to connect with different people across the world. I mean, there's so many advantages and being able to learn about different cultures from different areas of the world. And for me, that's something that's been really enriching and really surprising. I mean, I've had students from Abu Dhabi, I've had students from Dubai, I've had students from, all these really cool places. And, I just feel that with the continued development, I mean, I will have to probably teach less classes if I want to see more growth. But the thing is, if I give the tools that I've learned and the lessons that I've learned, like throughout this whole ordeal, then I think I'll be able to better equip the teachers that currently work with me to to be able to say, okay, this is for you. I'm trusting you with this. And I hope that you can make this grow.
it's nice. Doton and the team make fun of me because I do print out articles to read them. I sound like my dad, but I do. And here's one of them. It's called The Unexpected Benefits of Online Music Lessons. And more time to focus on music, easy connectivity to music software forces students to dig deeper into their musical training and make group lessons easy. Does any one of those pop out at you as like, that's the real reason that this is going to be successful now, online music? Did any of those pop out at you?
Yes, I would definitely say the idea of accessibility and actually the idea of group lessons. One of the things that I'm working on right now is creating synchronous content.
Mhm.
So, for example, being able to record certain aspects of like, okay, this is how you play a scale. Okay, this is how you put the clarinet together, or simple topics that don't take too long, and being able to provide an opportunity for students to develop the skills that they need to play their instrument, have them the opportunity to be able to record themselves. It could be with an iPhone or it could be with an Android or what have you, and to be able to send it to the instructor. So, for example, if I have a student who is in California, for example, and they are 8 hours behind me, then I can listen to the recording whenever I want and be able to provide thoughtful feedback. And I've actually noticed that with online lessons, if you know what you're doing, that's the thing. If you know what you're doing, there can be a lot of growth for sure.
Talk more about that. What do you mean if you know what you're doing? How do you
Because there's
know if you know what you're doing?
So, for example, like sometimes it depends, for example, with the device that you have. The hard part about online music lessons is the fact that you have to have a good microphone. So, for example, if the microphone on the device itself is not working, so then I would suggest, okay, it would be good for you to purchase this microphone. It's not expensive. It's only $19 that you could get from Amazon really easy. Being able to understand how to use the Zoom space. So, for example, with the feature of being able to share, right? Okay, this is what I would like for you to do. Can you please play this music, right? So, to share a score or to be able to highlight certain points of what they need to do to focus actually their attention. Now, I always have to remind my students and say, well, make sure you write it in pencil. Because the thing is, when I'm sitting next to them and I'm listening to them play, then I do it myself, right? Especially with younger kids. Now, that said, when it's online, I hold them accountable on a different level because of the fact that I can't circle everything for them. I can circle on the screen. I can show them what it looks like, what they need to focus on, what they need to improve. But it's up to them to make sure they remind themselves.
So
Dotan, your
that
mind must
brings
be firing on all cylinders right now.
no, that first of all, I completely agree that the methodologies, the educational methodologies are key to having a successful online course, online education, especially with all the available tools that are out there. You mentioned just the screen share, but there are even more available, more tools available, and they will become more and more sophisticated, and it will bring more and more opportunities as the years passed by. It reminds me when we started at Big Idea, before Click2 existed, we had to develop everything ourselves to deliver those coding and animation and other classes online. And we had to put ourselves in the mind of the kid in front of the screen and think, okay, so how do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them on top of this? How is it interactive? It's not the same like sitting in a class, in a brick and mortar class. It has some of the things you have to rethink, and there are also some more opportunities online for many of those things. I do hear from you, Kristine, that there were many challenges and you're learning from trying, and you keep developing and keep overcoming the challenges. Now that you're thinking about growing, you're trying to connect with organizations, with schools, you're trying to build that kind of stuff. Do you feel that you have all the tools, everything you need, or you're saying to yourself, well, first I'll find the business, then I understand the challenges, then I'll find the tools? And do you already have some of those challenges in mind that you can share? Maybe our audience, maybe on the Facebook group, maybe they have some answers for you.
For sure. For me, I actually embrace challenges and I'm very much a visual person. So I always like to kind of chart out the things that I need to do and being able to see the how I can map out my path. So right now with where we are, I mean, we have been doing well at the MLLC, and it's just a matter of being able to also look at data and being able to make sure I'm methodical and efficient. So the moment that I lose that type of focus, then okay, well, then I'm going to have to accept that there are going to be consequences to that. But in regards to these different aspects, I mean, again, I think it also has to go into this idea of being able to prioritize the most important thing in that moment, especially with, this type of growth and being able to develop, for example, the social media campaign that we're doing, being able to connect to different audiences, doing research on finding organizations and things like that. So, I mean, the challenges that I could foresee are that people aren't as responsive to it because they may not see music or language courses as something that is absolutely necessary. They might say, okay, well, STEM is the whole thing right now, type of thing. And it depends on the administrator. There's some people that see, oh, there's value. And the thing is with the MLLC, I've carefully have spent hours creating content that I would have loved to have when I was a kid. So, for example, kids have an opportunity to learn about music history. music theory, they have a chance to learn about ear training. We're developing courses in orchestration, being able, well, obviously with instrument lessons, they're able to have that base. And I know for a fact that students that I've had, private students I've had in the past, that have actually been my guinea pigs. I don't want to say in regards to testing the material and seeing how effective it is. I have actually done really well and have tested out of first year, second year music theory because they had that when they were a kid. So it's
Yeah.
one of those things that, I mean, I guess I hopefully that answered your question.
And those are some very lucky guinea pigs because they're taking clarinet from a world-renowned musician who seems like a super nice person. So, lucky for them to be able to do that. I have a question for you because Totan, we talk about education, of course, and teaching and all that stuff. But then I always kind of also want to talk about the entrepreneurial part, as you can tell. Tell us how much of your musical training and how you approached that then when you were younger to now has influenced, helped, maybe hurt your ability to start and grow this business.
Well, I would probably say the soft skills that I developed as a musician and the idea of making connections, being able to connect with people in a genuine and meaningful way. Because the thing is, no one's going to want to work with you if they don't like you.
Mhm.
Simply put, I mean, and that's the thing. And I found that being able to communicate in a professional way, in a genuine way, I mean, I get to my point if I when I want to communicate something really important, but being able to have that with my teachers. So I mean, for example, we had a really interesting training session whereas I involved them all together. So I had all of the language teachers, I had all of the music teachers together in one Zoom. So it was like all these little squares, right? And one of the things that we had done is I wanted to engage with them and say, okay, what do you want to see? Or what are your goals with the MLLC? Right. And so they each shared, a small thing of what they wanted from the MLLC, what they hope to see, whether it's like more courses related to their specialty, right? Type of thing. So that takes time for development, right? Now, that said, with having that music part, the skills that I learned as a musician, I also have that type of discipline. And that type of discipline of being able to say, okay, this is the standard. This is what needs to be done. This is what I want to see. Now, because of those aspects, the training was actually really fun because I showed them a couple of things what they needed to do. But at the same time, after the training, the expectation is, all right, so now that you know XYZ of what we had gone through in our meeting, this holds you more accountable for the work that you do for me. So in regards to the type of expectations, because as a musician, we have those expectations. I have to make sure that I study, that I learn my music as well as I can, but at the same time being able to make time for that. And so with the connections of that I mean, those are the things. I don't see any actually cons in regards to being a musician and building my business. I really don't. I've actually seen more benefits from that, but each person's different. I mean, I've just been lucky to have really great teachers in my life that have influenced me to become the person I am today.
Listen, sometimes it hits me almost every show. I'm trying to roll the time back 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and say to myself, if I was to watch this conversation 6 years ago and looking at those people, speaking about those people in boxes on the screen, teaching music live, that would be science fiction, not even a movie that I would believe to. So the world has changed so much in 5 to 6 years, especially during the pandemic. And then I always try to think, all right, so what about 5, 6 years ahead? What's coming up in 5, 6 years? How is that gonna look like? For sure, we're gonna go back to this video and see Kristine talking about her small medium business, and she'll be a multi-billionaire running classes for kids all around the globe to, I don't know, 100 countries. But how will we see that through the metaverse, in virtual reality? Is it going to stay the same? Are we going back to in person? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I think, well, I mean, that was quite a bit. I could only imagine what I would tell myself 10 years ago. Hey, Kristine, by the way, this is what you did. And I would have said, really? I did all of that? I was
Yeah.
like, wow, there's something to look forward to in 10 years, you know? I would probably say with the future of learning, I mean, there are always those social benefits, of that connection, of being able to share the same space, like physical space, with someone. But at the same time, I found that with online learning, and I continue to learn online. I take courses when I can. I ask questions. I'm always asking questions of from different people about what they do, what works for them, what didn't work, and it's trying to filter what could I get from those conversations with people and having that apply to what I do. In regards to maybe in 5 years, maybe there'll be hybrid models that will become standard, that will be part of education. Maybe in 10 years, maybe we're just online. you know
Yeah.
I mean, but I am definitely confident that online learning is going to maintain its sustainability, even though I know people prefer, sometimes in-person activities, so.
Truth be told, I used to call it Dotan, and I haven't in a while. Future Man. And Future Man just revealed himself on this show, and always helpful to have Future Man come in. And I know about your future, Kristine and Dotan. I know you guys are talking tomorrow. I think you guys are going to have a very interesting conversation, because I truly believe that, Kristine, your training in music is going to serve you so well in building a business. Dotan and I have done this a couple of times, and you can spot entrepreneurs that are going to make it because they got. And as you build, you're going to need new tools for scaling, and otherwise you're going to spend time trying to figure those things out when you should be thinking and building. So you guys are going to have a great conversation tomorrow about Click2. I was wondering if you could just talk to us as we get towards the end here, because I think we kind of glossed over it. But just tell us about the future of your career in music, because you also are, as I've said a couple of times, a world-class musician. So what's your future in terms of music, which is, I think, your first love for now?
For now.
Maybe it's going to be your
Yeah, maybe,
business. Who knows?
maybe tomorrow it'll be something else. No,
Business.
I business, right? No, so I mean, with the future of what I do, the thing is, I'm really passionate about learning and doing, and I'm not saying that, oh, I have this XYZ on the bucket list, but I I want to be able to continue to grow my business, the Music and Language Learning Center, and hopefully be able to expand and become more present in different continents. That's for sure. And I never realized, honestly, Josh Dotan, that I would have done this like 3 years ago or even 4 years ago. I would have never imagined myself doing this. But also, too, being able to do things in higher education, that's also something that I've been really passionate about. I've taught in Macau in 2018, and I really loved it. I taught a module on sound production, and it was one of those things that, being able to connect older students was something that was really cool for me too. And so my genuine goal is to make this type of music education widely accessible and available to people, and being able to do that in a meaningful way, and being able to create connect and continue playing the clarinet, of course.
Yeah. You have you have an important conversation in the future tomorrow that I think will be very interesting. We'll all want to hear about it. Dotan, you got any final words here? Any sweet final music you want to make?
Music. Well, I learned to play the keyboard like when I was in first grade. And since then, I didn't have a chance. So I'm probably after tomorrow's meeting, I'm gonna go on your website and see if there's any course that I can join. I don't know if you teach the adults. Not that I'm considering myself as an adult, but by the way, do you teach adults as well? Is it something that you're looking into adding?
Well, I do have a couple of clients, private clients who are adults, and yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to expand it. We've recently created a course, Spanish for adults. So, for example, we right now our most popular class is Spanish for young learners. Then I created Spanish for younger learners, right? Ages 5 through 7, right? I know. I was like, Kristine, that's amazing. And then I have Spanish for adults. And so it's recently being launched. So I'm hoping to be able to expand it to, it's just there's a lot of research that I need to do in regards to bringing enrichment also to, like nursing homes and things like that.
Right. That's just it's a whole different space. It's a whole big space, I think, that is still untouched in many ways. And we'll be here to explore it together, because this is very interesting to us as Click2 as well, to explore every space that can benefit from this new medium of live learning experiences. So this is what we focus. I think we learned a lot from you today and got inspired. I can speak for myself, but I know by Josh's eyes that he would agree.
We could go on and on.
Definitely. Yeah, this is very inspiring, and I think you also gave us some great tools and expert tips, really specific, and I'm sure that the community will be happy about that. And we'll probably cut it into small clips, video clips that will help others to also be in this space. And as we always say, there's no competition really. There's a community and opportunity for so many organizations to be out there. So as more organizations become bigger and more experts and deliver great products and services and courses and education, it's better for all of us. So thank you very much for being an important part of this. And we'll see you in the community.
Yeah,
yes,
I think
thank you very much.
That's the way to hammer this home. There is no competition. I agree, but there are good people, and we're lucky enough to come across to what you can tell through the camera. And that's an important thing when you're doing online courses, is a good person who's passionate and knowledgeable, and that you clearly are. So welcome to our community. Please tell more people to join so we can all kind of, we're in this together, teaching online, value what we've done in the in-person space, but also recognize the ability to teach online as well and reach new groups of people. So thank you for joining us today, Dotan. Thank you for bringing out Future Man for us. We all appreciate that. And we'll catch up soon. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.